Hey, I'm Rich Besen from Kearney's PERLab here.
I'm Rob Moser from Whirlpool Corporation.
And Rob, can you tell us a little bit about your role in?
Sure. So my role at Whirlpool is I'm the Vice President and Head of Design. And what that means at Whirlpool is all of the design functions, including physical product design, digital product design, experiential design, anything that ultimately impacts the perception or value of a product to a human, that is my organization.
What about the products for cats?
Yeah, I'm not allowed to give away product portfolio secrets right now.
All right. Very cool.
Actually, we do have a really successful pets line inside of our laundry business.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
It is founded in human-centered design, solving a real customer pain point where past products didn't necessarily do it that well, right? I mean, dog owners, lots of fur on your clothes all the time. We have a suite of laundry products that do an amazing job removing this, and it was born out of true human-centric design practices.
That's awesome. And speaking of a customer base that's probably very vocal and very let's say emotionally attached to their pets and obviously the products around them. What are maybe in that category, but maybe others? What are products that drive loyalty? What does it take to drive loyalty in a customer base? And
loyalty, and I'll go one step further. Passion. It comes from a place of a person being able to see themselves in the brand and in the product. And when I say that, sometimes it can be as simple as there's an incredible following in the KitchenAid stand mixer.
Sure.
It is an icon of a way of life that is part Americana, but also very deeply rooted in expertise of the craft, and a lot of people identify. That's part of their personal identity. So when a brand or a product is able to connect with the core identity that a person holds for themselves, when it connects to their core values, when it's a part of their daily rituals, this is where a product or a brand transcends just a transaction and actually becomes an object of passion.
Nice. Do you think there can be a KitchenAid mixer in today's what's the next KitchenAid mixer? Can one exist in today's kind of tribal and divided and world that we live in?
That's a great question. I've actually gotten this question before, and it's really difficult to answer. So the KitchenAid mixer became an icon. It was designed in the 1930s. It's been relatively unchanged ever since. It started to become the icon it is because of its amazing quality and sense of permanence. It's something that mothers and grandmothers, fathers and grandfathers have been handing down the generations, and it's become a fairly heirloom product. So the combination of the fact that it actually does the job extremely well, it's gorgeous, it has an element of sentimental value for many people, and it remains unchanged throughout the history of the product. This is what has turned it into an icon. Can a product today do the same thing? Yes, it can. I do think it's getting more challenging though, because as we integrate more and more technology's rate of development is so fast that every successive step forward tends to make the previous generation somewhat antiquated.
Sure.
And so the analog nature of the KitchenAid mixer has helped it remain relevant despite technological changes. So it is still possible, but I do think it's getting more difficult.
Yeah, and it's kind of in a rare class in that it's reached that threshold of, like you mentioned, analog, going beyond. It doesn't need to be digital. It doesn't need to to have that kind of and almost you reach for those things now because we live in such a digital world. And
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and it does feel like, to an extent, the idea of digital and technology integration into products has become kind of an easy button for companies to hit, right? I mean, you add another screen and you connect it to the internet and throw AI on it, and suddenly it's new and special. It's an easy formula that has some amount of success, but the consumer really is a lot smarter than that. And the consumer is able to see through this stuff. So even though it might serve as an interesting go-to-market message for a period of time. The truth is, it's about integrating technology in ways that it's actually going to improve the lives of the consumer base and make the product better. So that's where, I do see a lot of technology for the sake of technology in the product universe, and that's making this idea of long-term sustainable icons harder to achieve.
Yeah, we definitely had this boom of let's put connectivity in everything, right?
Absolutely.
I think as as companies and design organizations, we've mostly moved past that. There's still some vestiges of that. Let's put AI in everything now. If you went to some of the CES this last year, it was something old but with AI. Something that isn't right. Are we going too deep in that direction, or is it?
It's too early to tell in some ways. Yeah. AI is developing at such an extreme rate that I think it would be foolish to today assume to be able to predict all of the places where AI can provide value. There's definitely value that I see inside of Whirlpool's value proposition that AI can help make stronger. And we're making investments in the right places, but that's the key word. Use the technology where it creates a benefit for the consumer. And I'm seeing outside Whirlpool a lot of examples where companies have kind of lost that strategy. So AI is incredibly powerful, and it's going to be incredibly powerful, in my opinion, in basically every industry. But it's finding where there's a real human need and it's able to come in seamlessly as a part of the total product experience, not be something special and separate. Right. So
there's kind of these, I don't know what you would call it. You probably have better language for this, but kind of like microcultures or groups that are kind of have a very strong sense of identity and kind of that want a product tailor-made for them. Talk about how is that something that you really try to drive and listen to and make sure that you're kind of aware of? Or do you feel that you're able to kind of see those people as part of a larger whole and build towards?
Yeah, there's two different ways where this mentality of whether you call them microcultures or niches, or two places where this is really important in the work that we do. One is, in my opinion, a strategic competitive advantage for Whirlpool Corporation is our brands. So Whirlpool is Whirlpool, KitchenAid, Jenn-Air, Maytag, Amana, Brastemp, Console. We have many, many brands. And when we do that, what we're able to do is cater the brand to a specific set of values, a specific set of human needs. Whereas if you only had one brand that was trying to serve all customers globally, you can't really dive into the specific needs of any one population all that well. So it's incredibly important to us to understand what those populations are, what their needs are, and what makes them fall in love with a product or an experience. And then we're able to use our multiple brands to make sure that we're serving those people in the best way possible. The other way that it's come up today in terms of product and product innovation is this notion that top-down innovation is orderly but generally stupid, whereas bottoms-up innovation is chaotic but smart. And what that really means is, instead of going in and saying, I'll use an automotive example, we need a faster 0 to 60, and every piece of innovation goes into straight line acceleration, despite the fact 0 to 60 stopped mattering when electric vehicles came about, right? And so as an institution, when you create these big areas of strategic innovation investment, you wind up doing these investments in these small price for performance improvements. There's this one marketing message that mattered the day I came up with the strategy. It stopped mattering, but because this is how we set up the pipeline, we're going to keep working on it. That's top-down innovation. Bottom-up innovation is there's a human being that has a need, and that human being is looking for a solution. Just so happens that that need is more than just that one person. An example that came up today was anti-lock brakes were born out of a person who owned a small plane needing to be able to land in a small runway, right? So very specific use case came up with an ingenious solution, and then as it turns out, that solution had much broader application. So when it comes to niche markets and subcultures and sub-communities, they're incredibly powerful for coming up with true human-centric innovation that serves a specific need. But oh, by the way, many people actually have that need, not just that sub-market.
Totally. And it reminds me that you've almost seen a resurgence. It kind of went away for a while, I feel like, but you've almost seen a resurgence in parallel of the concept of universal design, which is not to say there's a design that universally serves everybody, but saying let's universally look at the population and make sure we're not missing a marginalized population.
Absolutely.
Right. And I think, I've worked at OXO, which is kind of a company that kind of grew up in that kind of that field. Have you seen any examples of where you've kind of looked to the margins and you've seen kind of inspiration there?
What's interesting is I've done a lot of work in this field in my career. When you look at any individual marginalized or underserved population, it looks like a fairly small market, fairly small group of people. But when you look at the percentage of the population that falls into any of the marginalized groups, that population is actually larger than the population that doesn't fall in them, right? So the underserved populations in the aggregate is actually the majority of our customer base. And that's where universal design comes in. How do you create a solution that accommodates all people, maybe not equally, but it accommodates them all? And you mentioned OXO, right? I mean, they really were the pioneers and kind of the poster child of doing this well. And Whirlpool, this is extremely important. We do this whenever we enter into any of our product development processes. We have a number of different activities we do to simulate the experiences of marginalized populations, but actually more than that, we have members of those populations on the development teams. I think the entire product development community, though, still has a lot of work to do to get better at this. And I think it starts from that realization that the population that is typically underserved is a large population that can be profitable. But since we're on this theme, there's one other thing that I would love to help anyone who happens to be watching this interview understand is no solution is effective at solving the needs of an underserved person if it is not also affordable. So here's what I mean by this. I'll use another automotive example. For people in wheelchairs, to get a mobility solution, you have to buy a minivan, right? $40,000, $50,000. Then you have to take it to an outfitter who's going to do a retrofit, which is another $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. So for them to have the same level of service, their cost of entry is double. But now also remember that for these people, the amount of employment opportunities is actually smaller. So in order for the same capability, they're having to pay twice as much and typically have less ability to earn income, right? So equality or good design for marginalized communities is actually also at a more affordable price tag as well. So you can't solve one without the other.